California wildfires devastate Los Angeles, deaths and destruction. How did 2025 begin with one of the deadliest disasters in California's history? On January 7th, a catastrophic chain of wildfires broke out across the Los Angeles metro area, destroying over 10,300 structures and displacing nearly 180,000 residents. Tragically, 10 lives were lost, but that's not even the wildest part. The Santa Ana winds kicked in, making it nearly impossible to contain the fire, which had been burning for days. The fires that kicked off in the Palisades region really spread through the Hollywood Hills, hitting the Sunset area and moving on to the Eatonhurst and Lydia fires. The big question of this video is, was it the Santa Ana winds that quickly turned the wildfire into one of California's most horrifying tragedies? Could this devastation have been prevented, or was it inevitable? California has a long history of devastating wildfires, but the 2025 fires are quite different in both scale and timing. Typically, fires in California occur during the hot summer months, but this year they erupted in January, a time usually marked by wetter weather. The impact has been catastrophic. More than 7,500 committed personnel are currently battling the fires. They've rolled out 1,162 fire engines to provide ground support and keep the flames in check. On top of that, 31 helicopters are doing aerial water drops, with 6 big water tankers focusing on the hard-to-reach hotspots. Still, the flames have been proving difficult to contain. Even Los Angeles County Sheriff Robert Luna said the destruction looked like an atomic bomb had dropped in the area, and one resident, Sue Pasco, had just these few words to say.
This fire is not going to take my memories away. I'm keeping my memories.
Let's find out what really happened. By January 7th, 2024, northern Los Angeles was in chaos, with massive wildfires tearing through the area. 3 huge blazes had already erupted, but one stood out for its sheer ferocity: the Palisades Fire. It started early Tuesday morning at 10:30 a.m. in Altadena, a town in the hills above Pasadena. By midnight, it had grown wildly, burning through 3,000 acres. Homes and buildings were destroyed, and the damage was so bad that firefighters couldn't keep up with how much was lost. No one knows exactly what started the fire, but everything was set for a disaster. The Santa Ana winds, strong and dry, blew in from the northeast, speeding up as they hit the hills and mountains around Los Angeles. These winds are infamous for making fires spread fast. They dried the air and the land even more, turning everything into kindling. Weather maps showed the areas hit hardest by these winds, with streaks of pink and purple marking the danger zones. With gusts reaching 60 miles per hour, even firefighting planes couldn't fly safely. Fire officials said the mix of dry winds, low humidity, and parched ground made it one of the toughest fires they'd ever faced. The setup for disaster started months earlier. Southern California had suffered through an unusually hot summer, and the so-called wet season delivered next to no rain. Rainfall maps showed a huge swathe of brown surrounding Los Angeles, marking areas that hadn't seen nearly enough water. It was the perfect storm: dry land, dry air, and winds ready to fan any spark into an unstoppable blaze. When the Palisades fire hit, it was like striking a match in a tinderbox. Thousands of residents, including some of the wealthiest in the area, were forced to evacuate their homes, watching helplessly as their luxurious mansions and beloved memories went up in flames. The human impact was huge. By Wednesday night, the Palisades fire had burned through more than 16,000 acres, and over 3,000 people had been told to evacuate. Families had to pack up and leave, unsure if they'd ever come back to a home. Rich or poor, it didn't matter. The fire didn't pick favourites. Entire communities were wiped out, leaving people with nothing. Losing a house isn't just about losing a roof over your head. It's about losing memories, comfort, and a place you've worked hard for. But the Palisades fire wasn't the only one. All across California, other fires were causing trouble too. The Hearst fire broke out near San Fernando and quickly grew to 850 acres, forcing evacuations in Santa Clarita. The Lydia fire started in Mount Misery-Acton and burned 350 acres before firefighters got it partly under control. Smaller fires like the Woodley and Olivos fires caused less damage, but were still reminders of how dangerous fire season can be. And then there was the Sunset Fire in the Hollywood Hills, burning right in the middle of one of Los Angeles' most famous areas. It scorched 50 acres and forced people to evacuate, with firefighters scrambling to keep it from spreading further. Firefighters worked tirelessly, but the conditions were against them. The winds kept pushing the fires forward, and the dry land made everything burn faster. Resources were stretched thin as crews tried to tackle multiple blazes at once. Planes couldn't take off because of the wind, leaving firefighters on the ground to do the best they could. The fires kept growing, showing no mercy to the people, homes, or wildlife in their path. This wildfire season is one of the worst California has ever seen, and it's not over yet. Fires like the Palisades fire show how much harder things have become. The long, dry summers and lack of rain aren't just bad luck, they're signs of how the climate is changing. Wildfires are becoming a regular disaster, and people are being forced to live with the fear that it could happen again at any time. The question of whether this event could have been prevented is both critical and interesting. Before we dive into that though, let's set the stage with a bit more context. For years, Californians have lived with the constant threat of wildfires. The state's dry, hot summers and strong seasonal winds, combined with dense forests and overgrown brush, have created the perfect recipe for fire disasters. As California's population grew, people became more aware of this risk and tried to manage it. Early on, this was done through large-scale logging, which thinned out forests and controlled burns, fires that were purposely set and then quickly put out to clear dangerous amounts of brush. These measures helped reduce fire risks for a time. But things began to change toward the end of the 20th century as environmental movements gained more influence. New laws cracked down on logging, portraying tree cutting as harmful to nature, even when it came to removing dead trees that could fuel fires. Controlled burns were also discouraged, as many argued it was better to let nature run its course. Around the same time, housing costs in big cities skyrocketed, and developers began building more homes on the outskirts of urban areas, right up against wilderness zones. This meant more people were living closer to fire-prone areas, putting lives and property at even greater risk. Wildfires can start in many ways: lightning strikes, careless campers, cigarettes tossed out of car windows, or even arson. But one of the biggest culprits is power lines. In 2018, nearly half of California's wildfires were sparked by electrical problems, and it's easy to see why. Much of California's power infrastructure is shockingly old. Many power towers were built before 1950, and the equipment most likely to fail and cause sparks are those old lines. One tragic example is the 2018 Camp Fire, the deadliest wildfire in California's history. It wiped out the town of Paradise and claimed the lives of 85 people. Investigations revealed that the fire was caused by Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E, the state's largest energy company, equipment dating back to 1921, nearly 100 years old. PG&E knew its aging infrastructure was a serious hazard, but had shifted its resources towards renewable energy projects instead of urgently fixing the problem. The consequences were devastating. Here's something also interesting. A potentially leaked letter from LA Fire Chief Kristen Crowley, dated December 17, 2024, cautioned Mayor Karen Bass about the consequences of recent budget cuts. In the letter, Crowley noted a $7 million reduction in the department's budget significantly hindered its ability to prepare for, train for, and respond to large-scale emergencies, including wildfires. These warnings weren't attended to. So how did we get here? It's a combination of choices and policies that, over time, have increased fire risks. efforts to protect the environment while important, unintentionally limited tools like logging and controlled burns that helped manage forests. California's wildfires aren't just about weather or bad luck. They're about how a series of decisions, well-meaning but sometimes short-sighted, have added fuel to the fire. What should we do going forward? As of the time of this writing, we don't value the damages that have resulted from these fire outbreaks. However, as California continues to face devastating wildfires, finding effective solutions for 2025 is crucial. Moving forward, we need a multifaceted approach that combines advanced technology, community preparedness, and proactive land management. First, investment in early warning systems using artificial intelligence and real-time data will help residents evacuate in time. Creating more resilient power grids by undergrounding cables and deploying smart sensors can prevent sparks that ignite fires during dry and windy conditions. Additionally, deploying drones for real-time monitoring of fire spread can give firefighters critical insights to manage resources more efficiently. On the ground, improving forest and brush management through controlled burns and targeted thinning can reduce fuel loads and prevent large-scale fires from starting. Partnering with local communities to educate them on fire-resistant landscaping and evacuation routes is vital for preparedness. Finally, increased collaboration between government agencies, fire departments, and tech companies can ensure data sharing and rapid response. By combining advanced technology, proactive land management, and community education, California can better prepare for and respond to wildfires in 2025.